Um, yeah, are you ready?
Yeah, thank you.
So what sparked your interest in theater?
So I, as a writer, early on was involved in the art of writing because French was my first language, and I grew up in California with a mother who was from Algeria and a father who was from France. And so I was struck at an early age by the multicultural aspects of communication and the particularities, certainly, of language. And I aligned in terms of writing with theater because I always loved it. And I think for me, growing up in a situation where there was a lot of conflict, theater provided a way to communicate about conflict in a way that was very natural.
Mhm.
So I was an actor and then became a playwright and am also a librettist and an activist. And I think all of those job descriptions, if you might, have aligned to be very representative, I think, of my identity as somebody who came from the diaspora, in a very large kind of sweeping way in terms of continents and cultures.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, at what point did you start to merge these all of these different job descriptions with your passion for human rights?
Yeah, so I think some level, human rights, even though I certainly, when I was young, wouldn't have used those words, um, uh, pretty much aligned very soon in my development as a human, um, with the arts. I think that I didn't know that these two things were aligned, but I think I was always very drawn, for example, to the border between San Diego and Mexico. We lived very close to Tijuana, and we went in a car, the four siblings and the parents, down into Mexico camping. And so each of us had like one bag that are like a brown bag that my mom gave each of us, and we would go camping. And it was very obvious very soon that there were inequities that existed between borders and between cultures and between countries. I also was the canvas of World War II and World War I were very clear to me because my paternal grandfather, fought in World War I and World War II. And the part of France where my father was and his family was occupied by the Nazis. So, and in my family, their family actually took in a Jewish boy. My uncle was in the resistance. So there was a lot of human rights kind of logic and thinking that was available to me at an early age. And so I think that I merged my artistic needs and ambitions with human rights quite early.
That's wonderful. Um, let's see. What need did you see in the world that propelled you to start Theater Without Borders?
Yeah, I think that as Roberta and I have talked about, the inception of Theater Without Borders came after 9/11 and as the beginnings of the war in Iraq, the US war in Iraq, were fomenting that uh, climate led uh, us, the founders, to feel that cultural exchange in the theater among across borders would be very needed. And my own history at that point was that I had uh, been writing about the Cambodian genocide and US complicity and had spent many, many years doing an oral history in the Bronx with Cambodian women refugees, and then went to Cambodia for a long period of time and could very easily see that there was a need for something like Theater Without Borders. It was very palpable to me. And so when the four of us founders came together, I think there was a synchronicity between us that energized us all.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, let's see. After Theater Without Borders was founded, what were the first struggles you encountered?
Well, I think that when we talk about struggle in general, I would say that one of the important factors to bring up is that having a grassroots volunteer organization that has existed for over 20 years without any money ever being exchanged and everything being grassroots and volunteer would put it in the category of being very rare. So anything that's rare uh, requires any organizations that are rare require a certain amount of leadership and clear thinking in terms of leadership. And I think that we have made good leaders um, in terms of our co-founding and co-directing uh, because when the struggles occur, which of course struggles are going to happen all the time. Struggles could happen simply in terms of scheduling, in terms of time, in terms of power dynamics. I think that one of our strategies has always been listening. And listening came to us because that, I think, was integral to the nature of Theater Without Borders, and also very much integral to my artistic practice, for example. I think listening and hearing different points of view and being interested in conflict leads one to listen. And so I think that all of the struggles that came to be, such as should we be aligned with different political philosophies? Should we change our model? Should we, for example, become a nonprofit? Should we have a different leadership system? Should we uh, take sides on certain issues that were coming up were generally faced by the beginning practice of listening. And so I think that that afforded us as leaders the ability to deeply understand the conflicts and then also be able to work among each other and listen to how we might proceed.
Mhm.
So I think that was one of the important things. I think that time was another factor. I think I've given the example that when we started acting together, which was a big part of what we did at Theater Without Borders, um, we thought maybe that we would be moving through the arts one by one, or that Cindy would, and we realized how much time it took simply to do theater as opposed to music, dance, etc. So time is a choice that leaders can make. It's a choice where one says as a leader, this is too important and it is too risky that harm or uh, creating unsustainable models is going to happen, that we need to take the time. And I think that the time that we've been taking continues because, for example, when we wanted to archive all the collection, that took, there's really no other way than to say that took a huge amount of time. I mean, it took time to find out where we could do it. It took time to navigate through systems, in this case, the University of Iowa, which is one of academia, bureaucracy, changing leadership, all of that uh, required time. And then you would add the other word, not you, one would add the other word, patience. Along with time comes patience, because I think if you decide that you no longer have time, then you're either going to become very impatient or you're going to abandon the the goal.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Roberta mentioned that choosing to remain grassroots resulted in a lot of internal conflict. How did that conflict play out?
So I'm not sure I'm surprised that Roberta said that, because I can't I don't, that seems like a lot of internal conflict. Seems maybe uh like that wouldn't be my depiction of what happened, but there certainly was a lot of discussion through the years, and a certain amount of um, definitely opinions on what might be the best way to go. Um, I think in terms of the discussion about grassroots and volunteer, would be sort of our approach, which was a great approach that we had, which is you put it all out there, you talk about it all. So we talked about a variety of different uh, possibilities that would have been establishing a nonprofit. We even went down the road of what does that mean? What would that mean? What would the paperwork mean? Who could perhaps be the umbrella for the nonprofit? All of the above. We tend to do that for a lot of the things that we talk about. So, as we did that, it might have been that we made somebody had one idea, then we said, no, that's not going to work. Um, and uh, decisions were made all along the way, obviously. And I think one other structure that we can think about is, I'm going back to the Acting Together project, which included a 2-volume anthology, a documentary film, and uh, just the constant or at least regular conversations we had with not only ourselves and the group of acting together, but outside of that, we would have uh, discussions and conferences where other people would join up. Um, I think is to again speak of leadership and to say that Cynthia Cohen was the leader of that project, and then Cindy had editors that she had chosen for the anthology, and there was a documentary filmmaker. So it's like creating different leadership groupings that are responsible for making certain decisions. And all of that is slowly worked out and developed. So I think those are some of the ways that those decisions played out.
Absolutely. And then this question I think was already asked by Nix, but how did COVID impact Theater Without Borders?
Yeah, I think very simply it affected Theater Without Borders as it affected theater, which was that we had to do a lot of things online and think very clearly about what we could do online. Um, Also, I think it definitely uh, created ways to understand more deeply what it is that we had, because suddenly theater and live theater was no longer possible, and we were dealing with screens, which screens have become much more a way to communicate. So it taught us a lot actually about what theater can actually do and reinforced very much uh, deep beliefs we had about the power of theater without actually understanding necessarily that that was going to happen, that we were going to come out of COVID even more galvanized than we were before.
Yeah. And then last question. Were you aware of any individual or organization that was against the mission to bring people together? Anyone who thought you should be operating differently than you were?
Very good question. I think that there have always been individuals and organizations that feel that we should take a very firm side on an issue. And as you can imagine, through the more than 20 years, there's been many political conflicts, human conflicts that have asked us, to take positions. And by saying, no, we will not take a political decision, um, we, I'm sure, and I can remember people saying that's wrong, that's the wrong choice, and organizations that would say, well, our organization has decided that we will do X, Y, and Z. Why isn't your organization doing that? So definitely things like that. Also, the use of social media and some organizations feeling and individuals feeling absolutely no social media should be used versus the idea that it could be useful, especially given that we are an organization that is trying to do exchange and to do international exchange. Fascinating in social media, for example, that sometimes I've worked with countries where people will say Facebook is not used, and then diametrically opposite, some countries saying that's all we use. So having to really navigate that world and the world of technology and how it has progressed has definitely brought up opposing and differences of opinions.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It was great questions. And if anything were to come to your mind after this, please let me know and be happy to answer more.
thank you so much.
Thanks.
It was wonderful to talk to you.
Great. I wasn't sure if you're going to stop the recording
Oh, yeah.
or